Blashill is apparently connected to the Florida Panthers. Claude Giroux speaks out on his upcoming free agency, and we continue talking about the conference final on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, June 10th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from PantherParkway.com. You can follow me on Twitter at MonoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. And thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Don't forget to also subscribe to Locked On NHL and the Crosscheck NHL show with Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark, who will be covering all the postseason activities around the National Hockey League. So, Cats fans, we're at this point, I've lost count of the days since the Panthers got eliminated and the announcement to be of whether the Panthers are going to continue with Andrew Brunette as the head coach of the Panthers. But there has still been a little bit of conversation around the NHL sphere about who could or isn't connected to the Florida Panthers as far as a possible head coaching vacancy. I mean, there's still quite a bit of head coaching vacancies around the National Hockey League, and there's still three other teams that still have to make decisions on their interim coaches. Those are the Florida Panthers currently, that is the Chicago Blackhawks with Derek King and Jay Woodcroft of the Edmonton Oilers. But many people around the National Hockey League would be thinking that with the Edmonton Oilers making the conference final, that chances are that Jay Woodcroft would stay as the head coach of the Edmonton Oilers. But let me bring in my guest here on the show. It's a Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. It's Nick Fairbanks. Nick, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Armando. Thank you for having me on again. And I think we're twinning today with the old glasses look today.
Yeah. Switch it up here. I switch it up here and there. Usually when I'm at home, it's usually when I like to go with the glasses look, because if I'm out. If I'm out in public, like usually when I'm sweating, I wipe my face too much, and then like the smudges and all that stuff. It's a little annoying. So definitely a look that I like to keep at home more than when I go out. Usually I like to wear the contacts. But yeah, man. Let's get into this, man. So Elliotte Friedman on 32 Thoughts. Towards the end of their most recent show was talk about the possibility of former Red Wings head coach Jeff Blashill coming to the Florida Panthers if the Florida Panthers do decide that that they would let go of Andrew Brunette. And let's read a little bit of his resume about Jeff Blashill. Detroit native. He born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. So probably grew up a Red Wings fan throughout all those years. A person who's taken Western Michigan to the Frozen Four, hired under Mike Babcock during the time when he was coach there, and coached the AHL affiliate in the Grand Rapids Griffins, won the Calder Cup in 2013, coach of the year in 2014, 340 wins / 90-point seasons, and won 7 of 9 playoff series. But the NHL record is not up to par. Only 1 playoff appearance, and that was his first appearance, first year at the helm in Detroit. No pun intended with Darren Helm, but record of 204, 261, and 72. And this was it wasn't surprising when Steve Yzerman let Jeff Blashill go, because Yzerman arrived there back in Detroit in 2019. So every GM wants to have their guy. And I spoke about Bill Zito wanting to get his guy a little bit. And so now Steve Yzerman has his chance to get his guy. And of course, when you talk about developing players and at the lower level, like what Jeff Blashill did at Western Michigan and in the AHL, that's cool and all. But as far as the NHL level and as far as a long leash as well, it was a very long one for him in Detroit. And only one playoff appearance, and didn't help the Red Wings get to that next level where they needed to. And of course, this was a team that was stripped down. This was a team that went in rebuild mode. But still, I don't know if I want a coach that had 6 years of a team rebuilding for a team in the Florida Panthers that's ready to win now. Your thoughts, sir?
So I'm going to go off the cuff with this one. I was shocked. I was kind of appalled that this name was even brought up in conjunction with the Florida Panthers. Knowing my background, I'm married to a very beautiful woman that is a Detroit Red Wings fan. So I get to hear the other side of, how Detroit operates and, what their opportunities are within the organization. And, Steve Yzerman's a very smart individual. He's the main architect for the Tampa Bay Lightning and what they're doing right now. He's doing something very similar in Detroit, which is part of the reason why I think Jeff Blashill has gotten such a long leash. His one playoff appearance had, you had Zetterberg, you had Datsuk, you had Cronwall, you had all of those named players. And as soon as, they left, didn't really have an opportunity to actually, make the postseason again. And they've been rebuilding, as you said, for the last 6 years. So that's why he got the long leash. There was no point in bringing in another coach and spending money on another coach that, was going to try and develop players. I mean, his track record is immaculate when it comes to that. However, when it comes to the Florida Panthers, they're on the opposite side of that spectrum. So they're in a win now mode, and, you need to bring in somebody who's proven, who knows how to make decisions, and who, we talked about this, can make decisions on the fly and adjustments when they need to. Unfortunately, Andrew Brunette was not able to do that in the Tampa Bay series quick enough in order to even secure a game or two. So the other thing that kind of is concerning to me with this report is if Florida is really entertaining Blashill, I wonder what that says about what ownership's thinking, or what maybe Bill Zito's thinking. Maybe they're looking to make a change and probably not have a $5 million coach that, they want to have, they want to pay a coach less than what they pay Quenneville at like $5 million. The other thing too is, I wonder if some of the players that, we've come to love over the last 2 seasons are probably going to be on their way out, because again, I don't see where Blashill fits into this unless you're going to start selling some parts and trying to revamp the roster and develop more of the homegrown talent that we have coming up.
Yeah, and that's the tricky thing about whether you let Andrew Brunette go because of the relationship with players, and then bring in not only a new system, but a new personality when it comes to relating to these players. And regardless of whether he stays, there's going to be some players who are going to go due to cap reasons. But if Blashill or anyone else comes in, there might be even more players that might not fit in with the vision of what said coach wants and what they think is going to take this team over the top. So I think about it from a relationship standpoint. It's not just, okay, plug in coach, you guys play, go. That's not how this works here. And you got to have a relationship with players. You gotta earn trust in them. Traveling on the road is a very important part of that too, because you're not in the confines of your own in your own region as well. And that's how players and coaches relate too throughout some of those times throughout the season as well. And so that's the tricky part about if they decide to let go of someone like Andrew Brunette. And there is a report out there that Ulf Samuelsson is no longer with the organization. And that gives me that raises a few questions.
Yep.
And one of them could be, who made the decision to let Ulf Samuelsson go? Did he resign? Number one. Number two, was it Bill Zito who made that move? Or number three, maybe Andrew Brunette has been told that he's the coach and it just hasn't been made public yet. And that Andrew Brunette was the one that made the move to let go of Ulf Samuelsson. No one knows why Ulf Samuelsson left the organization. So what was your reaction when you saw that report?
Well, I think it's still speculation right now because what we saw on Twitter, I don't know if that account is verified, but I don't see it as a huge problem because unfortunately, I don't think Ulf was able to instill the defensive structure that we needed. I mean, we definitely improved this year, but you can tell in the playoffs, we still struggled with the same issues that, year over year. And on top of that, once Andrew Brunette was promoted to interim head coach, I believe Ulf was actually running the power play. And during the season, they were able to figure it out. But again, it comes to, making those adjustments within games or within series. And, Florida, for, lack of a better saying it, got knocked out of the playoffs because they couldn't score a playoff goal. A power play goal. So, if it is indeed true that he is not with the organization anymore, then, that could have been one of the, main factors saying, hey, you guys had basically 2 series to score, a man advantage goal and couldn't get it done.
Mm-hmm. And the account that tweeted that was Rick Dhaliwal of The Athletic Vancouver. So someone from a very trusted publication. So we'll know within the next few weeks whether that report of Ulf Samuelsson leaving the organization is official. But it's really, I'm thinking about the why more than anything. And whether it's Bruno, whether it's Zito, or whether he himself left. But we're gonna transition over to the next segment. We're gonna talk about Claude Giroux speaking out based on his upcoming free agency this summer. But first, we're going to tell you all about BetOnline. And BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your sports betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup, the NHL conference finals, Major League Baseball, and of course, the latest fighting news from MMA, UFC, and boxing. BetOnline is your continuous source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. We have an important favor to ask you. We've put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcast even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On Podcast. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes a survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards to take our audience survey. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thanks for your help. Second segment here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. I'm Armando Velez. I got Nick here. And Nick, Claude Giroux spoke out based on his upcoming free agency with Pierre LeBrun of The Athletic. And some of the things that were spoken about were things that we already knew, and things that we heard were, we got more of the human side of things of Claude. And one of the things that stuck out was like mindset about not thinking too much about it, because when you really think about it, he was a walk-on in juniors, and a walk-on in juniors, getting all the way to a first-round pick, signed multiple extensions with the Philadelphia Flyers. So this is the first time that he's gotten traded, and the first time he's become a free agent. And so this is a little bit of a different territory, for no pun intended, for Claude Giroux, as far as his mindset going into a season. He's used to, whenever it's an off season, he knew in the past that he was reporting to Philly. But then I also like what he said about shutting the brain off and taking a little bit of time to think about it. And the agent is in contact with Bill Zito on a possible deal, but of course, things we knew already. It has to make sense for the family, and it has to make sense as far as winning a cup. So I kind of like that he provided a little bit of the human side of things about taking a little bit of break from the hockey after the Panthers were eliminated, and taking a little bit of time, like resting the brain.
Yeah, and that's sometimes you don't really get that out of a player, especially when they're being interviewed. They're giving you like straight, generic euphemisms or any kind of statement that will keep them safe. But it was very good to hear that Giroux is more or less just like, hey, I'm going to take my foot off the gas. Let me just think about what's going to be best for not only myself and my family, but also what's going to make sense for my career going forward. One thing that I think actually works in the Panthers' favor is, if you're following him on social media when he got traded, within the first, couple of weeks, he's posting pictures of his family, down here in South Florida, and they looked happy. They looked like they were thrilled to be here, and that just everything just was falling into place. Unfortunately for Claude, the Panthers didn't make it where the Colorado Avalanche, are right now. And that was the other team that was seeking his services. But, I don't think that's the end all be all. I mean, I guess for this current situation, but, it does bring up the question again, what's going to matter more to him? Is he actually going to go and try and chase for a cup? Is he going to re-sign with Florida, or is it going to be more about the monetary value that he can get out on the market? It'll be the first time he can do that. So it'll be very interesting to see, number one, what he decides, if it's family or monetary, or if it's family and wanting to win a cup.
And after reading the article, the first thing I thought of, I wrote this in our chat, and I'm going to say this on the show as well. I'm glad that the Florida Panthers are going to be the first team at the negotiating table when it comes to re-signing him. I keep wanting to say July 1st, but free agency has been moved back a little bit. So I'm so used to thinking that it's July 1st. So I believe it's July 13th when free agency opens. So the Panthers are first at the negotiating table, and there's a possibility that Claude Giroux doesn't even get to talk to these other teams as well, if Bill Zito and company can find something that's suitable for both sides of things. I'm not sure if it's more than a 1-year deal, but I'd be very shocked if it's more than one, because you still gotta try to re-sign Huberdeau. Mackenzie Weegar, he'll be a UFA in a few years. I'm not sure if you give him a long-term deal. I'd be very hesitant on a long-term deal. I'd be hesitant on like an 8-year deal of some sorts for Weegar. But you still gotta try to like reset the cap in a few years once the Yandel buyout is out of the way. So that because Spencer's going to be an RFA in a few the year after, excuse me. So there's a lot of mixing and matching that Bill Zito has to do in order to fit everything.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of accounting that's going to need to be done, and you need to figure out who's going to be a part of your team going forward, who's going to be a part of the core, who's not going to be a part of the core anymore. And, it really just, you have to set yourself up for success, not only now, but in the future. So, I mean, it's our favorite topic, or our favorite player recently, Mr. Weegar. I think you need to plan for the future with him. He's going to go get a lot of money, and he's going to get it most likely somewhere else, unless you're trading an Ekblad or you're trading another player that's making, a large sum of money, whether that's Bob or something like that. But you have to really understand if you want to protect the team itself and also get a return on your investment. So, if you were to pull off a trade with Mackenzie Weegar, what does that return package look like, and what can you turn that into? Are you going to use those assets to acquire more assets? And, are you going to be better in the cap because of that? So I think right now with the whole Giroux situation, you have to think that either Weegar is going to have to go, or you're going to have to let go of a forward or two. And, the top two people that I'm thinking, and I know Jacob's going to not like this answer, but you have Patrick Hornquist with his contract, and then I'm going to put Anthony Duclair on there. You have possibly Ulf Samuelsson that was let go because of the power play performance in the playoffs. Anthony Duclair was basically a no-show in the playoffs, unfortunately. So, yeah, that's where I'm kind of going with everything. If you need to make the moves necessary to fit Claude Giroux in.
Mm-hmm. I was going more of Patrick Hornquist and Brandon Montour, if that's the thing, because Montour does have term on his contract as well, and it's a very movable contract for it's a very team friendly type of cap hit for anyone to take him. So I don't think it'll be too expensive to move someone like Montour as well. So that's the thing with that, and like we said, it's about winning for Claude Giroux. He said that he came to Florida to win a cup, and so we'll see. Like I said, first at the negotiating table, which is a beauty for the Panthers. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we're going to talk about the conference final and talk about the experience versus inexperience there. So we're going to talk about that in the next segment here on Locked On Panthers. Third and final segment here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. I'm Armando Velez. I got Nick Fairbanks here on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. So, Nick, for the conference final now, we're recording this actually the morning after Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Final. Usually I've been recording these before the game starts, but now we got the result for Game 5. The Tampa Bay Lightning win 3-1 at Madison Square Garden, and really, we're now starting to see the inexperience for New York. I mean, they got a very young team, and still a little hobbled with Ryan Strome and Philip Hedl, and one even strength goal in the last 3 games. And we've been hearing about New York not being the best even strength team. They are a team that thrives on the power play. It's funny how New York and Florida are opposites when it comes to even strength and special teams, but that is not helping. And Igor's standing on his head. He really gave the New York Rangers a chance to win, but now with that Game 5 win for Tampa Bay, I think this gets closed out Saturday night in Game 6.
I think your prediction would be, it's well thought out and it's logical, because if we look at the numbers for Andrei Vasilevsky closing out a series, he's not human at all. I think he has a save percentage of over .950.
Amazing.
And I think he's had shutouts in probably 4 of the 6 or
6 of the last 7.
6 of the last 7. I think 2 of those were the Florida. But no, I do think it does get closed out, because I think as soon as Tampa either tied the series or they went down 2-1 and they got a game back in Tampa, New York was on their heels. New York had them basically dead to rights, and unfortunately just couldn't get a game out in Tampa. If that was the case, then I honestly would have taken them in about 6. But yeah, I mean, you have a young team that only thrives on the power play, but unfortunately can't score, 5-on-5. That's a recipe for disaster. You have to have a balanced attack, as we know here in Florida. But the other thing too is that you can't just rely on your goaltender. And it seems like, Tampa is willing to grind and willing to wait out to get their opportunities. And that's what they've done the last 3 games. It seems like all 3 of the games have come close and that they've scored within the last minute to win the game. And, whether you want to call it small little mistakes that the Rangers are making, Tampa Bay is taking advantage of what they have in front of them. And, Sergachev scored 2 big goals last night. Actually, I think Palat's the one that got the game winner again. It went off his shin pad, but you can just see that there is a mental difference, and New York is just running around in their defensive zone with a minute to go with no possession, and Tampa's just casually passing it around and finding their opportunities. So I agree with you 100% that this is going to be closed out, and we're going to have a Tampa Bay and Colorado final.
And there was an opportunity to take the lead for the New York Rangers. I mean, there's a pass from Andrew Kopp to Ryan Strome, and just a pass that couldn't be handled right in front of the net. And you think about this New York Rangers team and low scoring games. This is honestly, like this is such fun hockey to like low scoring and just the anticipation. I'm glad neither of these teams are my teams watching this. And just every shot is like, is this going to go in? Is this not going to go in? And just with that, with the New York Rangers, I mean, again, balanced attack, you said, and with the Rangers, them being unable to score at even strength, it's going to be what's going to possibly be the downfall of their season. But this isn't a detriment to like what they're building. I mean, they have an outstanding coach. We Florida Panther fans know all about that coach in Gerard Gallant, a very young team who's ahead of schedule, playing with house money, came back from a 3-1 series lead against Pittsburgh, a 3-2, series deficit, a 3-2 series deficit against Carolina, where the home team won the first 6 games until New York won Game 7, and then right here against the defending 2-time Stanley Cup champions. And there's at least like 6 or 7 players who are under the age of 25 on this team, and they're challenging this Tampa Bay Lightning team. This is fun, and of course the kid line of Lafreniere, Hedl, and Capo Caco, it's fun hockey. It's a lot of fun hockey to watch, and it kind of created a little bit of a soft spot for New York, and a little bit of respect heading their way. And of course, we love Frank Vetrano here. He's gotten into a little bit of scuffles in this series. No love lost between Frank Vetrano and the Tampa Bay Lightning, and of course the coach. So it's been fun, but just once again, the inexperience for this New York Rangers team, it's starting to show.
Definitely. And, we were talking about coaches in the first segment, I would love to have Gerard Gallant come back and coach the Florida Panthers right now, because it seems like he's, got the buy-in of all the veterans that are on that team, but also he's got the young kids who are, expected to be developing, playing at the top of their game right now. And doesn't that seem something that the Florida Panthers could use right now, especially with where they're going and what they're trying to accomplish right now? But I digress. Frank Vetrano was always a treasure here. I know that, before he was traded, that he didn't score in the last 20 games, but he was always somebody that put in the effort, that always would forecheck and cause a lot of disruption. And, he didn't forget about playing all those times against Tampa Bay, even in the playoffs. I think that's one player that, unfortunately we did have to let go because of monetary reasons, but, Bill Zito did do him a service to get him on the Rangers, and look where they are now. So we'll see where the Rangers go next season. Like we said, we do think that the series is going to be over, but, maybe, they take another step. They add another veteran, or maybe that their rookies or their young talent takes another step and actually can take more of the responsibility going forward.
Yeah, and you were talking about the forecheck, and the forecheck for the New York Rangers worked really well in the first few games, and it was creating a lot of scoring opportunities. And even their one goal last night from Lindgren, it was once again blocker side against Andrei Vasilevskiy, and I tweeted out saying, another blocker side goal on Vasilevskiy. It's like they know how to score on him or something with the thinking emoji. So
those adjustments, I'm telling you.
Yeah. And we were talking about Steve Yzerman and making the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, Andre Palat, I believe he's a 7th round pick, if I'm not mistaken, late round pick. I think he's a free agent this offseason. And once again, when you're a contender, you're gonna have to let go of some people, and you're gonna have to make some tough decisions. And we saw the third line of Gaudreau, Gord, and Coleman leave last year. And Palat, just double check, Palat is a UFA, former 7th round pick from the 2011 draft. So chances are he's going to get paid as well. So Steve Yzerman really built that team well, and he's also helped some other players, help them get their pay as well. So, man.
So I will add to that real quick, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
So the fact that he's a UFA, guess who's got a lot of money to spend? Detroit.
Oh,
So I think Stevie Yzerman is going to go shopping this offseason. I think Palat's going to be at the top of his list as far as a veteran presence and putting somebody on the second or third line that could really show the young guys on that team what it takes to win.
Yeah, I just checked Detroit's cap friendly. They have 35 million in cap space.
Just a little bit.
that's quite a bit. And Detroit, they have they just signed Simon Edvinson. I forget Simon Edvinson, who played in the SHL, 6th-round pick for them, and also their pipeline of goaltending. Sebastian Koza is playing for the Edmonton Oil Kings in the WHL, along with Florida Panthers prospect Justin Sordiff, who has 14 points in 17 games for the Edmonton Oil Kings and was averaging over a point per game with Vancouver Giants and the Edmonton Oil Kings. And Edmonton is 1 win away from winning the WHL championship and advancing to the Memorial Cup. So the pipeline for Detroit is great with Koza and Edvinson as well. So Steve Yzerman, man, that dude's a genius. He knows how to build teams. And I was looking up at all the players that he drafted in Tampa Bay. I'm like, wow, he built a powerhouse there in Tampa, and Breezeball was able to finish the job for him. Too bad it didn't result in a cup for Yzerman specifically, but he definitely has his stamp there.
Definitely. And it's why Florida, and I'm going to bring this back to us. This is why Florida needs to be wise in who they're going to choose as their coach. I'll be honest with you. I don't think Bruno made the decision to get rid of Samuelson, if that is true.
Yes.
I do. Yeah, exactly. I do think it did come from up top, and I do think that Florida is going to be bringing in a coach, and this is why they need to bring in somebody with experience to guide the team to the promised land. I don't think bringing in another coach who's not as tenured or doesn't have that pedigree is going to help this team very much. You have teams like Ottawa, you have teams like Detroit that are on the rise right now, and you still have to deal with Tampa. You still have to deal with who else is in the division right now. Of course, the Leafs. How could we forget them? Our first round buddies, or it used to be. And, you have a 2-year, maybe 3-year window where you need to take advantage of this time, because if not, then you need to start maybe retooling or maybe rebuilding yourself and really trying to make sure that, you're solidifying your spot, at least top 3 spots in the division. And Detroit could be one of those teams in the next 2 or 3 years.
Let's also put a little respect on Buffalo for what they're doing.
Yeah.
For after the Jack Eichel trade, bringing in Peyton Krebs, Alex Tuck, Owen Power is going to be in the mix. Rasmus Dahlin has been there for a little bit now. So even though it's going to be like 2 or 3 years until the Sabres make a jump, I kind of like what they're doing and trying to like rebuild their franchise as well. So Buffalo is another one, but it's going to be a little bit. And I still expect the Florida Panthers to at least get their fair share of wins over Buffalo next season. But I like what Buffalo is building as well. But Nick, I want to thank you for joining on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Again, hopefully where the Florida Panthers are at, still no announcement of the coach. Hopefully by the time you come on next week, we are talking about a new coach for the Florida Panthers, or maybe we could be talking about Andrew Brunette still being the coach and give our thoughts on what this means for the direction of the Florida Panthers. But plug in your stuff. Tell people where they can find you online.
Well, thank you again, Armando, for having me on. It's always fun to have the conversations with you, and look forward to seeing what unfolds in the next couple of weeks. But couple things. Number one, if you guys check Twitter right now, you guys can follow me at Prudential0. And also, I think John Boudreaux just announced that John Tortorella is going to be taking the Flyers job.
Wow.
Yeah. And then on that side note, you guys can follow my work on pantherparkway.com. I'm hoping to have some articles out this summer to talk about where the direction of the team is going, what's needed, and maybe some, maybe unpopular opinions that I may want to instill into everybody. I know that we had a podcast about that before, a segment about it, but I kind of want to bring that back. It was a really good idea.
That's for sure. That would definitely be fun. That's for sure. But Nick, thank you once again for joining.
Anytime.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to Locked On Fantasy Hockey and the Crosscheck NHL show with Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark, who will be covering all the postseason activities around the National Hockey League. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure to listen to today's episode of Locked On NHL. Locked On NHL covers the playoffs like no other. Hear the latest news and opinions from local experts every Monday through Friday. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. So I'm Armando Velez with Nick Fairbanks. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.